Hello and welcome everyone to anubhavtrainings.com. In this series of videos, we are learning how to automate your Fiori application and automated regression testing using Selenium of your Fiori app. In the past video, we have seen how to launch our Launchpad application as well as navigating to the app using either clicking on a tile or using the intent-based navigation from the Launchpad. In this video, we will discuss about how to click and handle the click on the list control with a master detail Fiori application. So let me straight away jump to the Fiori application which we had created by. So this is the Fiori application we are trying to automate. As you can see, it's a typical master detail Fiori app. On the left side section is called the master section and the right side section is known as the detail section. So we have built this application as part of our UI5 and Fiori training. And if you are interested to learn how to build these apps, feel free to subscribe our course on SAP UI5 and Fiori on anubhavtrainings.com. Now, when it comes to this list control on the left side, you would see that probably the developer would have coded or given a unique identification to the list control. And this is what we're exactly going to go and investigate now. So I will right click and check this particular list control and I will check its DOM. So if I come here and check the DOM for the list control, this is the list item. And then if you just go a little bit on the top, you see the entire list control over here. Now look at the ID of this control. It contains application undergo trainings manage component, the view ID, and also the control ID. So if you get this kind of an ID, definitely this is more of a static ID which is provided by the developer. Usually the dynamic IDs are always ended with some number. So if it's a framework generated ID, you will see something like list of 0 or list of 132 or 120 or something, which is more of a unstable ID. But if you see this kind of an ID, this is definitely a developer assigned ID while coding this application. And those who have taken my course, you already aware that this is the ID we have given during the development of our master page. So how are we going to now check what could be the most stable Xpath to make sure that our Selenium code can identify this list control? So for that, I have also added the Xpath Finder here and another plugin in the Chrome browser, which is free. So we are going to go and explore here the Xpath for the same. So I'm going to go and say, look for a div element and where contains an ID property is containing something called an ID of list. And I'm going to press enter. And you can see it has found about 7 elements on the page. Now, which of the exact element we are interested into? Yeah, of course, we are interested into the element which is this part of it. Yeah, so this part is probably the UL part under which all the list items are present. So I'm going to rather searching the div, search for the UL element which contains the ID as list and enter. And now this produces exactly one result. So this is the way you can uniquely identify one control on the screen using Xpath. So I will be using this particular Xpath later on while programming and finding the list. So in our automation test script development, we are going to go to the application. We're going to find this list and we are going to click on the first item. And when you click, you would see that it will load this detail section, this detail page out there, right? So that's our goal here as part of automating as part of this session. So I will go back to our application logic, and here maybe I would write a couple of more methods. So let's create one method for waiting time, static void wait for control, and I'll say WebDriver, and we will just expect an XPath or ID pattern. So we just expect an ID pattern. If the ID is there, then wait for that ID or that element to be available. You can also probably make it more generic. You can say, which is the property are you looking? what is the property value. Are you looking and are you exactly looking an exact match, or are you looking for a non-exact match? So Boolean is exact. Are you looking or not looking? And you can just set a default value as false. So let's code now this method. So I'm going to first write a case statement, and then we're going to compare this property. If this is basically looking for Xpath, or if this is looking for an ID. Yeah, let's do that. And I say ID. Furthermore, we will go ahead and now check, is the user looking for an exact match or non-exact match? So then further if condition is, if user is looking for an exact, true, else not. So I'm gonna take it over here. And if the user is looking for an ID pattern match, then we're going to write our Xpath accordingly. So what I'm going to do is I will be waiting for an element here. And remember, we have already done this waiting logic in the past. So this was the waiting logic we've done. I'm going to cut this logic from here. So, and we'll bring it on over here and just cut this part. First, get the wait object, of course. This is something which we always need. We're going to put it on the top, but this logic now would expect it to change accordingly. So I will write it here, and then I will just put here based on the conditions. What are we looking for? So if user is looking for an ID based condition, then we are going to say here by XPath based on ID. We'll show you that. And if user is exactly giving you the XPath, then you can directly pass the XPath over here. Direct XPath you can pass in. For this, the condition doesn't matter whether it is exact or not, because user has anyway given you, or the outsider caller has anyway given you the exact XPath. So that's the property value. Superb. And now coming down for the ID case, we got going to build an automatic dynamic condition where we are going to build an XPath for a given tag name. Okay, I have to also accept a tag name. And of course, we can just save this, and let's put here the tag name. Just going to build this pattern. Yeah, very much makes sense to build a dynamic one. And then inside this, it's an ID. So if user is giving you an exact ID, then you're going to directly put an ID equals to the value which user passed to you for the ID. Maybe make it a little maximize. And then say property value. And if it is a pattern lookup, then you can say contains @ID, comma, single quote, and then we can just include here the property value. Superb. So that's exactly my logic, to wait for an element until that element is being visible on the UI. And once the element is visible, anyway, the system is going to come out of this method. Yeah. And once user comes out of this method, maybe it goes to the next method. And the next method probably we will implement also is to handle the processing of now clicking on the list control. Click on list. And in this, maybe I would expect an ID of the list. And also I would expect an index. Index means where exactly, which item of the list control you want to click. Yeah. That's what we're expecting out. So for a list, the tag is almost fixed. We already got the Xpath over here. So that's going to be our Xpath we'll be using. So it's very straightforward. We just also have WebDriver because that's our main object we need to find an element. So driver dot find elements by Xpath. For the list control, the Xpath is going to be this one. But remember, the ID is dynamic. So we're going to build this Xpath with the new ID. And that's my ID of the list control. And then we are going to get all the child elements, all the list items. And then we say for all these list items, get me the ith item, which is our index parameter already. And then we're going to say, just click on it. So this is the logic, very much dynamic, to basically click on the list item, whatever index you're going to pass to it. Superb. We can go back, and now I'm going to write the code. So first thing is we're going to wait for list control to be visible. So we can just say that please wait for control dot, and we're going to pass here the parameters, wait for control. What are the parameters? So first is argument is driver. Second is tag name. So tag name here is we are going to wait for the UL tag for list to be visible. Then we are going to pass which property are we waiting for. We are checking for an ID of the list control where the ID contains ID list, and this one is going to be true. So this method is completely reusable, and it's going to wait for 20 seconds where an UL element is found which contains ID as ID list. And once the wait is complete, comes out of method, we are going to now click on the list. And of course, driver object, I want to click on the list with ID. ID list is there. And I want to click on the 0th item of my list control. So this is our logic for preparing and waiting and then clicking on the list control. I think we are also doing a mistake here by passing it as true, because we are not exactly looking this ID. Rather, we are going to compare this ID by looking at for this ID within the IDs available. Basically, it's a pattern lookup. So this should be false. And the next mistake probably is here, because in Java equals to is an assignment operator. We have to put double equals to, that's a comparison operator. And now I think we can go back and execute our code. Let's execute our script. And this should once again start the browser, logs me into the application under test, and then accordingly do the necessary actions. It launches the browser, maximize the browser, logs me into the application under test, changes the hashtag to our application, and loads the list. And there you go. It has clicked on the first item and the right side screen is being loaded. Fantastic. You can see this is how you can automate a click on a list control. With that, thank you so much for watching this video. If you think these videos are helping you, please feel free to subscribe this channel and also share this video with your colleagues. Don't forget to like and share your comments in the comment box below. With that, Anubhav signing out. Thank you so much, and I will see you again.